Maria drank orange juice every morning for 20 years. She thought it was the healthiest thing she could do. Her doctor called her back 2 days after her annual blood test. The results had nothing to do with what she expected. They had everything to do with that glass of juice. Her doctor found two things on that blood panel: elevated liver enzymes and elevated fasting insulin levels. Maria did not drink alcohol. She was not overweight. She had never been diagnosed with anything serious in her life. The only thing her doctor needed to know was one question: what do you drink every morning? And Maria's answer explained everything on that panel. Before I tell you exactly what was happening inside her body, I need to ask you something directly. Do you drink juice in the morning? Orange juice, apple juice, grape juice, any kind of fruit juice? Because what happened to Maria is happening silently to millions of people who believe they are making a healthy choice. The problem is not the fruit. The problem is what happens when the fruit is separated from its fiber, and what that separation does to one specific organ that has no pain receptors, an organ that cannot tell you when it is struggling. It simply works harder and harder in silence until the damage becomes measurable. A medium orange contains about 12 grams of natural sugar called fructose. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber slows the absorption dramatically. The fructose enters the bloodstream slowly over 30 to 40 minutes. The pancreas releases a small controlled insulin response. Everything works exactly as the body designed it to work. Now take that same orange and juice it. You remove all the fiber. You concentrate the sugar from 2 or 3 oranges into one glass. You deliver it directly into the digestive system with nothing to slow it down. The fructose hits the bloodstream in minutes instead of 30. The pancreas receives a sudden spike and releases a large urgent insulin response. Maria was doing this every morning on an empty stomach, every morning for 20 years. Here is what most people do not know about fructose specifically, unlike glucose, which every cell in the body can use for energy. Fructose is processed almost exclusively by one organ, the liver. When fructose arrives in a slow fiber-accompanied trickle, the liver handles it efficiently. But when it arrives in a sudden concentrated flood, the liver is overwhelmed. It cannot process the volume fast enough, so it takes a shortcut. It converts the excess fructose directly into fat. This process is called de novo lipogenesis, and the fat produced does not go to visible areas. It accumulates inside the liver itself. This condition has a name: non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it is exactly what Maria's doctor was looking at on her blood panel. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease affects an estimated 1 in 4 adults worldwide. The vast majority of them have absolutely no idea they have it, because the liver has no pain receptors. It cannot tell you when it is struggling. It works harder and harder in silence until the damage becomes measurable in a blood test. Maria's liver enzymes were elevated, not in the emergency range, but elevated enough that her doctor immediately asked about alcohol consumption. Maria did not drink alcohol. When Maria described her 20 years of morning orange juice, her doctor paused. She explained something Maria had never heard from anyone before. Fructose consumed without fiber on an empty stomach is one of the most efficient ways to silently stress the liver over time. Not because orange juice is poison, because 20 years of daily concentrated fructose floods adds up to something the body was never designed to handle. But the liver was not the only finding on Maria's blood panel. Her fasting insulin levels were elevated too. 20 years of daily morning insulin spikes had gradually reduced her cells' sensitivity to insulin signal. This is called insulin resistance. And it is the direct precursor to type 2 diabetes. Maria was not diabetic. She was pre-diabetic, caught early enough to reverse completely. But if she had waited another 5 years without knowing, the progression would have continued silently. Her doctor's words stayed with her. You did not develop this from eating badly. You developed this from one daily habit that looked healthy but was working against you the entire time. When I researched Maria's story, I went looking for what the longest living cultures actually do with fruit in the morning. What I found was consistent across every blue zone never studied. In Okinawa, Japan, fruit is eaten whole, never juiced, and almost never as the first food of the day. The morning meal begins with miso soup, vegetables, and a small portion of rice. Fiber and protein first, natural sweetness much later. In Ikaria, Greece, the morning table has olives, whole grain bread, a small amount of local cheese, and herbal tea. Fresh fruit appears later in the day, always whole, always with other foods. In Sardinia, Italy, the first food of the day is typically dense whole grain bread with olive oil, not fruit juice. not a sugar spike. Fiber and healthy fat first. None of these cultures juice their fruit. None of them start their day with concentrated fructose on an empty digestive system. The absence of that single habit is part of why their livers and pancreases are still functioning efficiently at 90 years old. A landmark study from Harvard School of Public Health followed over 100,000 adults for over 2 decades. It found that drinking 1 or more servings of fruit juice per day was associated with a significantly higher risk of type 2 diabetes. Eating whole fruit, including oranges and apples, was associated with a lower risk. The difference was entirely in the fiber. Remove the fiber and the healthiest fruit on earth becomes a vehicle for a concentrated sugar flood. The study concluded that the food matrix, the physical structure including fiber, water, and cell walls, matters as much as the nutritional content itself. An orange is a completely different metabolic event than orange juice. Even though they come from exactly the same fruit, Maria had spent 20 years believing she was consuming the orange. She had been consuming something her body experienced in an entirely different way. Maria's doctor gave her 3 specific changes: simple, free, immediate. Step 1 was stopping the morning juice completely, not reducing it, stopping it. The liver needed a period of rest from the daily fructose flood before any real recovery could begin. Step 2 was replacing the juice with the whole fruit. 1 whole orange with breakfast, eaten after the first portion of protein or fat had already been consumed. Fiber intact, absorption slow, insulin response controlled. Step 3 was adding a 10 to 15-minute walk after breakfast 3 times per week, post-meal movement. Accelerates glucose clearance from the bloodstream and directly reduces the workload on the pancreas. 3 changes: no medication, no supplements, no special diet, only the knowledge that one daily habit was the source of the problem. 6 months later, Maria returned for her follow-up blood panel. Her liver enzymes had returned to the normal range. Her fasting insulin levels had dropped significantly. Her doctor told her something she had not expected to hear. The pre-diabetic markers were gone, not managed, not controlled with medication, gone, reversed entirely. Through 3 simple changes to one morning habit, Maria told me she felt angry at first, 20 years of believing she was doing something good for herself. Then she said the anger passed quickly, because she had found out early enough to change the story completely. Most people never find out until the story has already written itself. You are finding out right now, while you still have every chapter ahead of you. Here is what Maria's story means for your morning right now. If you drink fruit juice of any kind before eating solid food, your liver and pancreas are receiving the same concentrated fructose flood every single morning. Not because you are making a bad choice, because nobody ever explained what juicing actually removes from the fruit. The fiber is not just bulk. The fiber is the delivery mechanism that makes fruit safe for daily consumption. Without it, you are drinking concentrated sugar with vitamins. With it, you are eating one of the most complete and protective foods in nature, the whole fruit, always, and always after, not before, the first protein or fat of the morning. That one sequence change is the difference between 20 years of silent liver stress and 20 years of the fruit working exactly as nature designed it. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your juice, reach for the whole fruit instead. Just that one change on the very first morning. Leave a comment below telling me what you drink every morning and how long you have been doing it. I read every single comment because your habit might be the next story I investigate. Subscribe to Longevity Coffee and turn on the bell. Next week, I am going to tell you the story of Robert. Robert crossed his legs at his desk every single day for 30 years. What it did to his sciatic nerve by age 69 is something his physical therapist said she sees every single week, and almost nobody connects it to the chair.